Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 14 of the All Dolphins podcast, which you can find on YouTube, even though I'm told it's not a podcast on YouTube, but you can find it literally as a podcast on the Fans First Sports Network, wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever. It's going to be a busy week for us. This week is minicamp week. We're planning on doing a podcast show, whatever you want to call it, after every session to talk about what we have seen. Before we talk about the upcoming minicamp, though, let's address some of the news of the weekend around the NFL, including the Buffalo Bills signing defensive tackle Ed Oliver to a 4-year contract extension, which you may say, well, what's that have to do with the Dolphins? Well, it does. We also need to discuss the never-ending topic of Dalvin Cook, because it's come up again if you see a bunch of different sites, because Barry put it out there that the Dolphins are interested in Cook if he becomes available, which is a kind of a no offense to anybody involved, but the guy's a hell of a player. So yes, if he becomes available, obviously the Dolphins would be interested.
Available and at the
right price. Yeah, go ahead, Omar.
That's the most important thing. Available and at the right price. I'm curious to see what happens from this situation, because I think that this was a contract shakedown that went left. The Minnesota Vikings told them that they need to reduce the salary for $10 million. Dalvin said, not going to happen. They tried to trade him. No trade takers at the trade deadline. Dolphins had discussions. Nothing has happened. Dolphins even went out as far as to draft a tailback, Devon Chain. We asked Mike McDaniel after drafting a tailback, does this preclude you guys or exclude you guys from being in the market for a trade? He basically said, no, it doesn't. And we're going to continue to look to upgrade our team. Dalvin Cook wants to play in South Florida. Whether or not the Dolphins want to offer him the contract that will satisfy him, who knows? He might be looking to latch onto a contender. I personally don't believe that the Minnesota Vikings were going to release him, because if they were going to release him, they would have already done it. I think this is a situation where they're going to hold out potentially till the opening of training camp, till maybe running backs get hurt, till possibly the trade deadline to determine what happens. I also don't think that he's going to be the only tailback on the market, because Derrick Henry is probably in the same situation. He's going to be held probably till the trade deadline, depending on whether or not the Minnesota Vikings and the Tennessee Titans are actually in the playoff equation. Mm-hmm. Expect both teams to unload their top tailbacks, just like Miami unloaded Laramie Tunsil.
Very important point to be made here when we're talking about these situations like this, because you hear all the words is like the Vikings are very high on the Alexander Mattison, what he can do. He was great when Dalvin Cook wasn't in there. Well, yeah, that's the story they want to put out there, because they want to, it's kind of the PR campaign. And The other issue is, this is a scenario where, as you mentioned, it kind of backfired. And the problem for the Vikings here is Dalvin Cook is good enough to know he doesn't have to take a contract a pay cut, because guess what? Somebody's going to sign him to a contract when he gets cut. If you remember a couple of years back, Dolphins did this with Albert Wilson. Well, Albert Wilson wasn't a player of the caliber of Dalvin Cook, and Albert Wilson took the pay cut. Because had he told the Dolphins, no, I'm not taking a pay cut me, Dolphins would have gone, bye. Whereas the Vikings, as you mentioned, if they were going to cut Dalvin Cook, they'd have done it by now. So
I don't know if they will, but obviously they've shopped him, can't find a buyer. Teams know he's going to be released, and when he's released, those who do have cap space might be interested if they have a running back need. Dolphins don't have a running back need. Now, would Dalvin Cook drastically improve their team? I believe he's the type of talent that would make them a championship contender. I believe they are a playoff contender now. And adding an elite talent like Dalvin Cook makes them a championship contender.
They're not paying him $10 million. That's why they're not trading for him.
No.
Be like, okay, let's wait, see if he gets released. If he gets released, Dalvin, how badly do you want to play for the Dolphins? Because again, here's my thing though: is he going to be, if he joins the Dolphins, is he really going to be used enough to justify giving him a decent amount of money? Based on what we saw from the offense last year, where they used a lot of different running backs, and now they brought back Raheem Mostert, they brought back Jeff Wilson Jr., they drafted.
Yeah, but that's because they didn't have a featured guy. If you
I agree, but they didn't go looking for a featured guy. They were like, we like what we have.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced. And here's another thing too. Also, you mentioned Dalvin Cook's from Miami, played at Miami Central High, so obviously he wants to play for Miami. He also wants to get paid, and he certainly would like to play for a contender. And is there a team around the league where that's a really good team that maybe has somebody he has a very close connection to, like, I don't know, say his brother James, who plays for Buffalo?
I've heard that he does not want to play there. He doesn't want to go to Buffalo and stifle his brother's career. So I don't know.
That's nice. I love that. Brotherly
I don't know.
love. I love that.
I don't know what of that is true. I mean, there are going to be other title contenders that are out there that are looking to upgrade their team. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I have no idea what's going to happen, and we've probably got a month before something happens.
Correct.
If they open training camp with him there, then will he practice? And if he doesn't practice, then it's clear that they're still trying to move him. But we'll see what happens here.
Well, the Vikings have an issue with this contract, and guess what? The other teams around the league have an issue with this contract, paying that kind of money to running back, pure and simple. While I slipped in the Buffalo Bills in there, we have to address Ed Oliver, 4 years, I believe the number is $68 million, $45 million guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
Why does this matter to the Dolphins, other than the fact they're going to have to face Oliver twice a year? Well, Christian Wilkins, it's another contract for him and his agent to look at and go, that's the kind of money we want. And if we're going to be honest about it, while I think at times Oliver is more explosive than Christian Wilkins, that I think has a bigger potential to be a game wrecker, I don't think we can say with a straight face that Oliver's been a better player so far in his career. Wilkins clearly been a better player than Oliver. So if Oliver's getting 4 for 68 with 45 guaranteed, Wilkins saying that, that's the ceiling and that's got to be more than that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was always the ceiling. It really comes down to
the floor. I didn't mean ceiling. I mean the floor.
Yeah,
that's where we.
The floor. It really comes in my mind. It comes down to what are you paying him per year in the money that's real and money that's guaranteed. That's $45 million. I believe that would probably be over 3 years. So and it's until we see the real details of the contract. We don't know if that's fully guaranteed or if that's guaranteed for injury. But $15 million a year, if we're breaking down 45 times multiple times 3, divided by 3, which comes out to $15 million a year, and this is how contracts are really computed. I'm okay with that for Christian Wilkins, as I've stated previously. Now, when I look at what is the urgency for the Miami Dolphins to extend Christian Wilkins,
bingo,
there is none. He's already making $10.7 million, as would Ed Oliver. If he touches the market, oh well, and you become the highest bidder. Maybe it gets out of kilter, but I'm not setting the tone for my defensive line by signing the most expensive guy. That I'm just not doing. I wrote a piece about Raekwon Davis, and I'm not saying that Raekwon, and please do not misunderstand this. I am not saying that Raekwon Davis is a better player than Christian Wilkins. What I am saying is if you plan to run a 3-4 defense, a base 3-4 defense, you might want to secure the most important part of that defense. It's not a cornerback. It's not a safety. You cannot run a 3-4 defense without a nose tackle. And they are just about as difficult to find as elite quarterbacks in the NFL. Go look what's going to become available in free agency. Go look what annually becomes available in free agency. You're not going to find a nose tackle. It's impossible. And more than likely, you're probably going to overpay for it. What is an overpay for Raekwon Davis? I'd probably put the price point at like $8 million. I would rather sign Raekwon Davis for $8 million than go sign Christian Wilkins for $15, $16 million a year. No offense to anybody involved, but that's just good business for me.
Yeah, I'm sure none of the players would take offense to that whatsoever. Quickly point out Omar's story that he's talking about on Raekwon Davis was on alldolphins.com, which Omar and I obviously write on and write about and fill the site with stories, excuse me, every day. Here's the other thing too, is Zach, if we're going to talk about underpaid, if the idea of contract situations that need to be addressed on the front line, Zach Sealer pretty much comes to the front of the line because I think his cap number salary for.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does. He's making like $3 million.
Okay, and Raekwon Davis is making half of that.
Zach Sealer's better than Raekwon Davis.
Okay, he is. Okay. But more difficult to replace. You could go find a Zach Sealer in the draft. You can't necessarily find a Raekwon Davis in the draft.
There was one there, and then in the Michigan kid, Masu Smith or something, some M. Smith who got drafted by the Cowboys like in the first round.
Maurice, yeah. Okay, you're gonna have to use a first round pick, and I'm not opposed to using a first round pick on a nose tackle or a defensive tackle. The question I have, and this is the biggest issue, which, how much do you pay for a non-impact player? Sure. And I'm not saying that Christian Wilkins is not a very good player. I'm saying, does he change the nature of the game? Change the nature of the game on your team for the Miami Dolphins. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Xavier Howard, Jalen Ramsey, and maybe even Jalen Phillips, and maybe even Emmanuel Ogbah. Those are the two maybes. Is Christian Wilkins a impact player? Answer yes or no.
Well, if we're going to go by the first quarter of the Sunday night game against the Chargers last year, when he basically made every other tackle, the answer would be yes from that very small sample. On a game in, game out basis, yeah, no, I am kind of with you. And I've done a 180 on this thing, because when the offseason began, I was like, well, Christian Wilkins, signing him to an extension is a priority. And the more I've thought about it, I mean, I've completely turned around to where, yeah, he's making a really good amount of money this year.
Absolutely.
And you can see how he fits in. It's a new scheme that's going to ask him to do more things, including getting more pressure on the quarterback and pushing the pocket more than he has in the past. Is that something that it's in his repertoire? Can he do that? And if he can, then okay, you readdress the situation next offseason. You still have the possibility of franchise tag, though that might be a little pricey because he's classified as a defensive end. If the Dolphins keep a 3-4, he was a defensive end on the Pro Bowl battle last year because they've.
I bet I watched him work on that classification. Watch him work on that classification this year.
Oh, he's going to want to be a DN for franchise tag purposes. That's a higher number than
absolutely
lineman. Unless. I don't believe they group him strictly as defensive. They might group him strictly as defensive lineman. I'm not 100% sure. I don't want to go. Anyway,
I think he's got a fifth-year option as a defensive lineman or defensive tackle. It's not an end, the fifth-year option. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Okay. I absolutely hear what you're saying. And I got to look into that, whether or not he's classified as an end, or because that might change my negotiating price. Because right now, I'm looking at it, $10.7 million this year. You're making 3 times more what your teammates making. You're making 7 times more what Raekwon Davis is making. I'm not shedding a tear for you. Now, and next year, if things go, if you have a dominant season, I can franchise tag you like I did Paul Soliai or like I did Randy Starks. I'm not really stressing it. Now, am I stressing Zach Sealer? Probably. Am I stressing Raekwon Davis? Probably. I'm not stressing Christian Wilkins. He's making drastically good money.
No, I agree. Okay, I think that's pretty much it for the news of the weekend we needed to address. So and speaking of the Bills, on Monday morning they signed edge defender Leonard Floyd to help bolster their pass. That's a nice move for them, especially.
Yeah, I did.
There's some concern about exactly how quickly Von Miller is going to be ready for the start of the season. That's a pretty nice insurance policy. And then when Von Miller comes back, that's a lot of pass rushing ability.
There's a lot of good defenders still out there. And I would hope that the Dolphins would snatch one up before we begin training camp, because I'm sorry. I think you're missing a nose tackle. I think you're missing an inside linebacker, and I think you're missing a safety. Now, when Trill Williams comes back and Deshaun Elliott get cleared to practice, because I still haven't seen him practice, and Brandon Jones is there, and maybe even we throw Nick Needham into the equation, we'll see. But right now, I don't see enough bodies at safety.
Again, the hope is that one of those guys emerges. Yeah. I'm very little weirded out by the fact that Dolphins really have left themselves very thin on the defensive line. I can't imagine they're not picking up somebody, a veteran at some point, because they let John Jenkins go to the Vegas Raiders. And I mean, he's not an impact player, but as a backup defensive tackle in the middle of the defensive line, he's very solid, and that's the kind of player that they need to have.
Your season becomes flushable if Raekwon Davis is not on your defensive line, or you're going to have to completely change your scheme.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Also, is I'm not sure, based on my knowledge of Vic Fangio's scheme, while he will run a lot of 3-4 alignments, in fact, mostly 3-4 alignments, his nose tackle doesn't have the same kind of responsibilities as they did under the previous scheme, which was a purely, occupy 3 blockers, 2 blockers.
Zero technique to occupy 3. But okay. So even if let's say we run a 4-5, 4-2-5. Does that add up in the math?
Yeah, don't do what I did this weekend when I talked about a 3-3-4, and then it took 3 seconds for 25 people to point out that adds up to 10, you dummy,
Yeah. A 4-2-5. Yeah, 4-2-5.
4-2-5 is 11. Yeah.
4-2-5. Okay, you got Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips on the end. You got Zach and Christian Wilkins. You got the 2 inside linebackers, and then you got 5 defensive backs. Okay, and that is probably going to be their base for 70% for 700 plays. You still need another 500 plays for another scheme. So whatever that's going to be, you're going to have to figure that out. And what I'm saying is, Raekwon is really the only guy that's you don't have a backup for on the team, unless the Peely kid is going to actually step up and become a playmaker.
Yeah, that's way too
Brandon
early.
Yeah. And it's you need a guy who can clog.
And also understand it's going to be based on who they face. Like, for example, this idea of like Vic Fangio likes to use, as we mentioned, the 3-4, which would be 3-4-4. It adds up to 11. They open against the Chargers. We're going to throw the ball all over the field. Are they really going to start in a
No.
4 DBs, or it's going to be a nickel, or even maybe a dime? It's going to be a nickel or a dime.
4-2-5.
Yeah, 4-2-5. Yeah. So this is the thing when people talk about this is the alignment he uses. We're talking about as a base, as more often than not, if the opponent, like when they play Tennessee, for example, if they still have Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, they're not gonna be in a dime to open the game. They're gonna be like, in a scheme designed more so to focus on stopping the run as opposed to defending the pass.
3-4-4. Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the opponent. Okay, so enough talk about that. Let's address mini camp this week. A couple of things. It's mandatory. This is the only event of the offseason that's mandatory.
I will keep attendance this time.
There we go. Players will be subject to fines if they don't attend. However, it is not impossible that a player will skip a mandatory mini camp, and then have put in his new contract that is the fines are excused.
Who you giving new contracts to?
Well, no, I'm just saying that it happened with Xavier Howard a couple of years ago.
I'm just asking you because you throwing out new contracts.
They have a lot of guys possibly because
Who's
we
at the
haven't
top
seen
of your
Connor
list?
Williams, for example.
Who's at the top of your list for guys to resign? You got $12 million. Who is Alain Poupart putting pen to paper?
We're going to have that argument again because I'm going to tell you, I think clearly Robert Hunt is the second best offensive lineman on this team. He's the one I would like least.
Know what my answer is going to be? How do you know what my answer is going to be?
Because you said last week that Connor Williams was your second best offensive lineman.
That's why I asked you who you putting pen to paper. You're putting Robert Hunt ahead of Connor Williams.
Yes.
Can I play? Let me just hypothetically ask you these questions.
Go for it.
Can the Dolphins play 10 games without Robert Hunt? And who steps in and fills in?
Robert Jones would be one guy who jumps out.
Okay.
Then let me throw it back to you.
Isaiah Wynn, you throw him in there.
Isaiah Wynn, okay. Dan Feeney, possibly.
Dan Feeney, okay.
If Robert Hunt, and this is always to me the value of a player, if Robert Hunt misses, let's say 10 games, how big is the drop-off compared to if Connor Williams goes down, misses 10 games, and Dan Feeney steps in for him? That's interesting. Okay, do we have you back?
What the hell is that?
Okay, we're still on. We're still good.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where's the bigger drop off? Robert Hunt to Robert Jones, for example, or Connor Williams to Dan Feeney?
It's definitely Connor Williams to Dan Feeney. I don't even. I think there's certain players where your season's a wreck if you lose them. The most irreplaceable Dolphins. Teron Armstead is clearly at the top of the list. Then I go to Tyreek Hill. Then I go to Tua Tagovailoa. No, actually, you should put Tua number one. Let's. I've seen Mike White. Tua is definitely number one. And then I'm going Connor Williams. Like, season's a wreck. He's there. He's not there. Then Raekwon Davis.
Well, okay. Well, here's why I say Robert Hunt is I watched. You'll appreciate me for this because I know you're a big offensive line guy. But when I did my like rewatching of the games on Monday, I paid attention to the offensive line.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I recall. I can name 5 times where I saw like Robert Hunt getting physically beat. The only issue with Robert Hunt last year, he had a few too many pre-snap penalties. I saw Connor Williams, while he played very well on the whole, get beaten a few times.
It's going to happen.
I thought Robert Hunt was like, damn, that guy was good.
Who faces a more difficult challenge? Connor Williams has to go against the Raekwon Davises of the world, where Robert Hunt, on a bad day, he's going to go against the Aaron Donalds of the world. Aaron Donald really moves. And if I'm the Rams, I'm not putting him against Robert Hunt. I'm putting him against Liam Eichenberg. So I think Connor Williams, it starts with him on the offensive line. I think the surge he gets in the run game is critically important. Robert Hunt is a nice player. And I'm just killing it with these expected free agents. Robert Hunt's a nice player. Is he an irreplaceable player? He's not. He
is somebody who I think has a Pro Bowl in his future, and I'm not sure I can say the same thing for Connor Williams. I happen to think a lot of Robert Hunt. Here's the thing: since we talked about Connor Williams, important point. We've seen 2 open OTAs open to the media. Connor Williams was not there at either one of those. Again, remember, those are voluntary. But it's certainly not foreign or unusual for players to like kind of quote unquote make a statement of, I want a new contract, therefore I'm going to apply the word voluntary to its fullest meaning.
Yes.
Is Connor Williams one of those? Very possibly.
Very possibly. And as I say all the time, at this stage in the game, this is the exact moment you push your thumb on the organization to get yourself a new deal. Because when we open up training and when we actually begin playing exhibition season games, that's not it. That's time to focus on the team and minimizing yourself. And yeah, the funny thing is the 2 guys who have skipped all of the voluntary stuff, which is Zach Sealer and Connor Williams, or what we know. I've seen pictures of Zach Sealer. So he's been there for some portions of the voluntary stuff. I have seen pictures of him. Connor Williams, I have not seen. So those are the 2 guys that I would probably put very high on my list of guys to re-sign, all because they're not going to be astronomically high-priced players. And in fact, I could argue to you that if you extend Connor Williams, which you should, because players do not like to play on expiring contracts. If you extend Connor Williams, you would create cap space. You would probably create enough cap space to re-sign to sign Dalvin Cook, if that's what you wanted to do. He's on the books for $7 million a year. You can sign him to, let's say, a 3-year extension, give him all of that $7 million in a signing bonus, and then his salary becomes base, and its salary becomes $3 million instead of $7 million this season. So that gives you $4 million extra dollars, just helping you with the math to play with. Now, if I'm Dalvin Cook, am I signing for $4 million? Absolutely not. I'm signing probably for about $6 million. That's my price point. If you're sitting out here paying Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert $4 million a year, I'm a 6 guy. So that's how I equate this.
That's fair. No, just to point out, in case it's not totally obvious, the reason players don't like to play on expiring contracts is because of the possibility of catastrophic injury where they're basically done and there's no more income coming in. That's
not just that, but it impacts them heading into free agency. And I give Nick Needham is a perfect example. Nick Needham's being paid half of what he got paid last year, and he should be considering it himself thankful because the Dolphins decide to re-sign him for $1.6 million. If they hadn't done that, he would probably be unsigned and probably have to go sign somewhere for the veteran minimum. So props to
correct.
but his is a perfect example of why you don't put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, but he had no juice. He became a restricted free agent, and then it's
you know what would have got him a juice if he had an agent who went out there and got him an offer from another team when he was a restricted free agent. Then that would
how many? No offense, all due respect to Nick Needham, you have to get an RFA offer. You have to be like a fairly significant player. Generally speaking, RFAs don't move.
I think he would be worth Nick Needham at that point last year would be, yes, they do move. At that point, they would be worth Nick Needham.
Name me 5 RFAs who have moved. RFAs.
You want 5?
Don't move. Because I'm making the point. Your RFAs, once the tender is applied, RFAs.
Matt Breida got moved. Now he didn't get extended.
Got traded. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but he was still an RFA. I mean, you could force the issue. You can force the issue.
You can force it. You have to have some juice to force an issue. Anyway, we digress. Speaking of Nick Needham, it was great to see that little video of him running on the field Friday. Certainly don't look for him to participate in the minicamp, since we said this was a minicamp preview episode. So let's go ahead. So Nick Needham, Brandon Jones, Trill Williams, who we haven't seen yet, Teron Armstead. Even though I spoke to somebody who attended the celebrity basketball tournament in Cahokia Heights, Illinois, which is Armstead's hometown, on Friday night, said he took part in the basketball game. Moved around fine, even though I was told like it's a celebrity basketball game, so it wasn't exactly like they were sprinting up and down the court. But the fact that he was out there running around, that's a great sign. Still would be shocked if he wasn't just spectating at this mini camp. Who else coming back from injuries? Those are the guys that jump out to me.
I'm curious to see if David Long is going to participate. We haven't seen him much for all of the OTAs that we've been in attendance for. He's been doing a rehab assignment. I need to see eyes on him actually play linebacker.
Okay, now since you mentioned that, which is interesting. Of course, there was a smart aleck on Twitter who posted, because the Dolphins posted a video of David Long running from one field to another on Friday. We're like, well, it doesn't look too injured to me.
That's a rehab assignment, brother.
Well, not only that, it doesn't change the fact that he didn't, take snaps in team drills or 7-on-7. Seriously. So yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see if he's out there. He very well could be. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be.
We're gonna see Xavier Howard. We're gonna see Jalen Ramsey. Will they participate? Some, maybe. I was actually surprised the first OTA session we were there. Xavier Howard took 11-on-11 snaps, and I was like, "What?"
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, like, when does Xavier Howard take 11-on-11 snaps in OTA? When does he attend? But he made a point of saying earlier that he's attending because this is a new defense, new scheme, and he's got to learn it. So all good.
No, more props to him. And then I've maintained, I have said, if X is right physically, 2023, I expect a better season from him than I do Jalen Ramsey, and that's saying a lot, because Jalen Ramsey is a hell of a player. I think X is a complete stud when he's right. He just wasn't right at all last year. I'll tell you one guy I'm going to be curious, and then I know you're probably going to poo-poo it. I'm so curious to see, as opposed to poo-poop it. I'm curious to see what Cedric Wilson can do. Because I think because ideally the Dolphins, you know damn well the Dolphins want to keep him on the roster.
Oh my God, Cedric Wilson? That's
Cedric Wilson. I mean, it's not. Do we really need to see Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle catch passes?
No, we don't. But do you? Okay, is Cedric Wilson Robbie Chosen, whatever he wants to call himself today? It's Robbie Chosen.
Robbie Chosen.
No. Is he Braxton Berrios? No. So you want to see whether he's the 5th receiver, 6th receiver? I don't even think he's better than Eric Uzukama.
Oh, I do. I mean, I like. Yeah, come on. I think we're being a little harsh here. I mean, yeah, he wasn't a factor last year, but
when have you seen him make plays? When? Tell me when.
He had some catches last season. He actually had a good practice. The second OTA that was open to the media, I thought he looked good. And again, it's one of those, you and I both know the Dolphins, if they wind up cutting him because they can't find a trade partner, they're going to be hating life to having to pay him $5 million to go away. So I think they really, really want to make it work with him and carve out some kind of a role, even if it's as the fifth wide receiver.
He's a backup punt returner, backup kickoff returner, fifth wide receiver.
Okay.
Like, so hey, special team gunner. Like, let's figure out a way to make it work.
What else you want to see at the
That's who you're furious about?
That's one of the guys I'm curious. Dude, I also know a lot of the other players. I know, like, for example, I know, you know, there are a lot of guys I don't need to see that I know what they do. I know what they can do.
Everybody, Cedric Wilson Jr. No offense to Cedric Wilson Jr. or his family.
Okay, no, how about Noah? I don't need Omar. I don't need to see established players whose role I already understand on this team.
What do you want to see from Noah?
I want to see if there's something salvageable there. Wow, the verdict's already been rendered. No, objection, Your Honor.
Listen.
Evaluation.
No disrespect to Noah and his family.
No disrespect there.
You know he's gonna get picked on by Tua. It doesn't matter. It's like he's just the whipping boy,
dude. We didn't see it in the due to two OTAs and there's one and I hate that people actually pointed this out. This Dolphin social media video.
Oh no.
Pass. This is a one-on-one, for Christ's sake. It's a one-on-one where the guy's going deep.
Yeah, but the Dolphins are usually more careful about exposing the cornerback who gets roasted unless it's Noah.
They weren't in that case, and of course people jumped on it like, of course he beat Noah. I mean,
but come on, answer this question, yes or no.
Go ahead.
I'm going to play lawyer. If there's a big play in practice, is Noah Igbenogany usually the guy being roasted?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
No?
The two long completions in practice last week weren't against Noah.
No, I'm talking about in big picture. Big picture, his whole career in Miami.
No, I think that's an unfair blanket statement. I'm going to stick up for Noah.
Okay, all right. Listen, tell me what role you can envision for Noah this year. Because he's going to be here.
Well, the money they have left to pay him isn't significant enough that they don't need to keep him.
It's like $4 million guaranteed. It's significant enough. It's not.
Are we sure about that? I think.
Let me look
real quickly, because I don't. That doesn't sound right. Sounds more like 1.7 or something to me.
Yeah, it might be offset language, but yes. I'm trying to look now. But Noah's an okay player. And if he's on the roster, cool. You know who I'm interested in seeing? Deshaun Elliott. That's who I'm interested in seeing. You know who I'm interested in seeing? David Long Jr. You know who else I'm interested in seeing?
Mike White.
No. Yeah, you know what? I am interested in seeing Mike White.
Yeah, don't close the door yet.
Yeah.
They're already on the Skyler number 2 quarterback bandwagon.
No. I'm just saying don't rule Skyler out, because it's Noah, you lose $3 million in dead cap. So it's significant. Noah's at 1.6 is guaranteed. So okay.
So 1.6. Okay.
Yeah, 1.6. I could cut him for 1.6.
Yeah, correct. So
but somebody will pick him up, and that'll be offset language. He'll get another cup of coffee in the NFL. I personally hope that they trade Noah. I hope that they trade Noah for 2 years. Noah just needs a clean slate. Right now, Tua Tagovailoa looks at him at pre-snap and knows exactly where he's going with the ball. And I'll tell you why. Because he doesn't fear Noah picking that ball off. So even if he throws a 50-50 ball, good chance Noah's not taking that ball. So it's just ball recognition. I've thought, if you're going to try guys out at safety, and that's what they're doing, put Noah there. Take a look, just experiment. And I'm not saying that his reaction will not be slow, because his reaction at cornerback is slow, but correct. What is the harm?
No. See if there's something there to be garnered, to be used. I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but yeah, no, as opposed to just going ahead, well, he's a wasted project, let's dump him. I do think the Dolphins owe it to themselves. Let's see if we can salvage something. And the thing is, in the new scheme, if he has to play more zone, Noah's a good and willing tackler that might play into his strengths, because you mentioned his biggest issue is like the ball recognition, playing the ball. And
Okay.
that's kind of
Do you think
magnified when
turning
you're
him
playing
into a
man
zone
coverage.
cornerback would benefit him? That's an
Right.
interesting theory.
And maybe he makes a roster as a fifth cornerback, special teams guy. Who knows?
You know what? So I'm also interested in seeing. I would like to see Michael Turk punt because we haven't seen any punts yet.
Correct.
I just want to know if he can actually contend and compete for the job.
Fair.
Not that they're going to give him the job because Jake Bailey's got a 1.6 million guaranteed, but let's see the rookie punter. He's got legs like hams.
Yep. I'll give you another one. I'm curious to see because I've been called crazy for this position. Been called crazy for a lot of things, but among them, my position that I'm sorry, but to me, Devon A-Chain and Savon Ahmed are the same guy. And I'm like, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're crazy if you think or get your glasses fixed. My glasses are very strong, by the way. And sometimes I watch practice with binoculars, so that's not the issue. To me, they're same body type.
Absolutely. Same skill set, similar skill set. No
similar
question.
skill set. It's the
One
same
guy's
guy.
just a little bit faster.
A little bit, not to the point that I can notice. Because by the way, spoiler alert, Savon Ahmed's pretty fast.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's beep fast like Devon A-Chain, but
that is a good term. I like that. I might borrow it.
That's Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are beep fast.
That is a good term.
So we're gonna wrap this up. As I mentioned, we are going to be doing this pretty much all day, every day this week. I'm gonna get tired of you, Omar. No offense. But there's going to be a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff to discuss. As always, he is Omar. I am Poupart. Thanks for listening, watching, paying attention, all the good stuff.
All righty.